Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Dark, and joining me today is the Yuli DiMartino. I love that, by the way. Yuli, did you bring
What's
that new
going on,
sound
guys?
effect?
Yeah, I brought it with me. What'd you think?
Yuli, it's awesome. Let's keep it going. So today,
Let's go.
Yuli, together, we are bringing you the best auto industry content anywhere, online, in store, and across, get this, planet Earth. That's our promise today. A reminder, we're live streaming across all CDG social media platforms. Post your comments to those platforms today. Now, do it. All of them you can post to. We'll bring as many of them into the show today as we possibly can. Honda Pro Jason says, let's go. Hashtag Honda. Love it. And check out what we have coming up. Cox Auto just this morning released updated market results, and we have them live here, delivered by Cox chief economist, Mr. Jonathan Smoke. Plus, Jeff Zonen, operating partner at a couple Infiniti and a Kia stores, shares how he's crushing it in new car sales, not talking used. He's crushing it in new car sales using, get this, not salespeople, but a broker. That and more coming up shortly. But first, Yuli, let's dive into today's automotive headlines.
Let's do it.
First up today, the Cars.com 2025 American-Made Index is out. I did not know that existed, but in today's tariff world, everybody wants to know, where's that ride made? And guess who won? Tesla swept the top four spots, led by the Model 3, which jumped to number one after a redesign boosted its U.S. parts content. Tesla earned top marks for domestic parts and U.S. workforce involvement, which help explain their clean sweep. Oh, yeah, and Musk's involvement in the whole project can't hurt either. 2/3 of the 99 vehicles on the list came from foreign automakers, a trend that's held steady since 2020. In fact, get this, the Kia EV6, a foreign OEM, has built the most domestic parts content of any foreign OEM-produced vehicle on the list at 80%. Honda, Kia, Toyota, Nissan, and Volkswagen claimed 13 of the top 20 spots. Meanwhile, the Detroit-based brands only placed 3 vehicles in that group, showing how international brands now have a slight upper hand in U.S. manufacturing output. A very interesting result from that Cars.com survey. Props to them for releasing that and sharing that with us. Next up today, Ram is launching a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty on its 2026 trucks, doubling the industry standard 5-year coverage. The warranty covers major components like engines, transmissions, axles, and sets Ram apart from Ford, GM, and Toyota, all of which still offer 5-year coverage on gas-powered trucks. CEO Kaniskis says the change reflects how long people actually keep their trucks. Most buyers finance for 7 years or more and hold on to the vehicle for up to 12. Yet, he says warranties haven't evolved. And the stakes are high. Ram sales have fallen 38% since peaking in 2019. And Kuniskis, who came out of retirement to lead the brand, is betting that a bold warranty will help win back customers. So, question is, will this ploy work, or will it saddle Ram with increased warranty costs that will be difficult to pay down the road? No pun intended. What's your
You
take?
took the words right out of my mouth, Sam. I feel like it's a double-edged sword, or rather 2 sides of the same coin. I think it's going to really help bring people into the brand. I mean, if you're a contractor buying a truck, why wouldn't you want to have free coverage for an extended period of time? It's going to help dealers with that warranty work in store. But the long-term play, let's see how it affects the brand.
It's fascinating, Yuli. Many OEMs in a ploy to get market share and kind of come back after quality issues have done this. I think of Kia, I think of Hyundai, I think of Mitsubishi back in the day. So it is an interesting strategy. Bill Vaughn says need to follow suit Nissan. So that's the call to Nissan. And then we see from John Roper, wah, 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 wah. Wah, 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 wah. I think that's what he meant. But you can't give that sound effect on a text or on a social media post. Exactly. So leave it to us here in the show to actually interpret those for you. And thanks to our team for the special effects. So, all right, finally, let's talk consumer affordability. New car affordability hit a standstill in May with the average buyer needing 37.4 weeks of income to purchase a new vehicle, unchanged from April and the lowest point so far this year. Monthly payments crept up to $756 a month, the highest since December, as auto loan rates climbed to 9.88%. Even with solid income growth, it's it's getting harder for buyers to keep up. Cox Automotive's Jonathan Smoke, who we have in the green room, he's going to give his perspective direct to you from his own mouth, says the problem is tariffs. They've neutralized, he says, the usual levers like incentives and wage gains that would normally help improve affordability. Incentives are still out there and incomes are rising at a healthy 3.4% year over year, but together they're not enough to offset the pressure from high rates and flat pricing. The only bit of relief, affordability, is still slightly better than it was a year ago when it took 39 weeks of income to buy a new car. So we'll have to ask Jonathan Smoke. You add the 37.4 weeks up with how many ever weeks we all work to get out of our tax bill to the IRS, which Grant Cardone covered last week. And you basically have the entire year between your car loan and your tax bill. So fascinating. John Roper says, no, haha, Borat, wah, 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 wah. It's a good thing. Love it. So flat. Well, Yuli, let's go to our first guest today. Fresh off new results today, Cox Automotive, Jonathan Smoke, chief economist at Cox Automotive. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hey guys,
welcome.
It's good to be with you.
It's great to have you on the show. You're no stranger to the car dealership guy and to the podcast. This is your first time on the Daily Dealer Live, so we're excited to have you here on this live stream. And let's just dive into it. You've got the full view of automotive through Cox's data. How's business right now for auto retail, Jonathan?
Well, I think it's holding up. You know, we were chatting before we went live that especially when you ask dealers the question of how's business, it's all relative, and especially relative to just what happened last week and the week before. And we're clearly seeing slowing from the frenzy, the bigger activity that we had once the tariff announcement happened on March 26th. So we had a really strong end of March and the first half of April. Since then, we've seen that frenzy cool down. We're still up from last year, but what we're seeing in retail is that new is slowing a bit more than used. And obviously new has the pressure of some production cuts happening from some manufacturers and shipments that add some pressure, and we've got lower inventory and supply. And we clearly, I think, are in the early stages of just seeing how exactly the manufacturers are trying to manage those added costs and how that's coming through invoices, stickers. It's a whole variety of strategies. You know, I like to say actual results may vary. So this is where the brands and the models, you know, have lots of different moving parts, but it's not all bad. And it's really unclear how this is going to proceed, but we're expecting a slower pace for new sales this summer. The market is just basically adjusting to tighter conditions and higher prices. I'm much more optimistic about used. Used appears to be holding up better. Same situation though, it was much better in April and it's cooled a bit, but we're up substantially over last year. And I really think all the pressures in new even strengthen the used car market more. But we're still limited by supply. We're still limited by rates that are near 25-year highs and not likely to get much better. So it's certainly not an environment where we're expecting more frenzy. But as long as the economy holds up, which I'm optimistic about, I think we're going to continue to have plenty of demand, especially in the used market. And I think propping that up, which we can talk about, is there's pent-up demand out there. We had at least 7 million less retail sales than we should have since 2021. So there are a lot of people that are living with a vehicle that they would have replaced years ago, and where we've got the oldest vehicles in operation we've ever had. And they're just looking for a price and payment. And as you covered in the affordability data, that's really hard to see much opportunity. But you know, as you see incentives coming back, which I think will be happening, and as you see vehicles depreciate and use, which we're back to the real world reality that happens. Once we get some improvement in rates, you'll see those people coming back in, you know, into the market as those prices and payments appear. So, you know, I'm optimistic. We're very dependent on personal transportation in this country.
Yes, we are. So it's interesting. You talk about maybe a little bit of a peel back in new car demand, maybe tariff driven. I think it's fascinating when you look at the consumer sentiment numbers. May's numbers were up 7 points What's driving that optimism on the consumer sentiment side and causing buyers to pull back? And why is it impacting new more than used? I mean, tariff is probably one of the big answers, but
Well,
what's your
yeah,
take on that?
sentiment's in that category that economists call soft data. So,
Okay.
it's gauges that are often very timely and very useful, and in normal circumstances are great to predict what's happened. And I can tell you historically, yeah, we want to see strong consumer sentiment that's improving, because when people feel good about their current situation and, more importantly, the future, they're more likely to want to buy big things like cars and
Yeah.
homes. And when home sales are booming, then car sales are normally booming too. So it was good to see that increase in May. Basically, the May increase almost erased the declines that we had back in
Mm,
February, March, and April. And we started June with sentiment going up. So, yeah, I was getting more optimistic that we could see upside to the forecasts that we were looking at. Why was that happening? I think a lot of it was because people were overreacting to some of the politics and Liberation Day and some of the extreme chaos that was happening really across March and April. You have the stock market down substantially then too. And a lot of things have been improving really over the course of May and the second half of April. But unfortunately, this is one of a few data points that was like, oh, that was so last week, Sam, because
yeah,
we've actually seen sentiment that was once up in June is out actually now down.
back
And
down.
when you have a war in the Middle East breaking out and you have protests all around the country, like we had this weekend, we're in for ups and downs. This is not a clearly the sky is parting. We were talking about rain and how we all are seeing more rain. It feels like this summer, and so we're not out of the clouds yet. But consumer spending, the consumer has been the reason why the economy hasn't gone into a recession. We're seeing pretty consistent consumer spending that hasn't turned negative. Is that confidence translating into the real buying behavior? We're not certain that it's likely to improve, but we're not down year over year. And of course, you've got the negatives of high interest rates and high costs and prices in vehicles and uncertainty as well. And I really think of all of those negative ingredients weighing on the consumer, it's uncertainty that's the worst problem for the new vehicle market, because I would argue that if you had a perfect survey of consumers and other would-be buyers, like fleet buyers around the country, nobody believes we're going to have a 25% tariff at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Emblematic of that is we struck a deal with the UK, so the vehicles coming, largely Jaguars and Land Rovers only have a 10% tariff. And so a lot of people are thinking, if I miss my opportunity, there's less supply now, prices are higher. I might as well wait to really see what the tariffs end up being. And so I think that acts as an extra negative on new vehicle demand in the short term. But if you really need new wheels, the used car market hasn't moved all that much. And I think that's where a lot of people are looking to buy.
Yeah, interesting. So I'd love to ask you a broader term of where you see the big opportunity for auto dealers. But before we go into that, when you think about payment, the consumer payment, since the beginning of COVID right up through today, I feel like we've been talking about that payment just keeps going up, pushed by inflation, pushed by interest rates, pushed by everything else. And I feel like we would have seen sort of a breaking point for the consumer. Are you seeing that breaking point in the data? And if so, where is it? And if not, why not yet? It feels
Yeah.
like it's not yet. I don't know if that's right.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at just the pure payments, they are very they're very close to the all-time highs that we've
Mhm.
recorded. So from that perspective, it looks really bad. And when you look at it, say compared to 2019, it certainly looks much worse. But when you compare it to other metrics that matter, like
Mhm.
incomes are up almost as much as that average payment is. And in fact, if we hadn't had the increase in interest rates, the average increase in new vehicle prices is almost exactly in alignment with the increase in incomes that have occurred. So affordability was starting to improve, has been improving for the better part of the last 2 years, because incomes kept going up at a historically strong rate. And we were finally seeing improvement on both prices with incentives coming back and interest rates coming down, at the fourth quarter of last year. Unfortunately, with tariffs, we've had prices now move higher again, and we've seen interest rates move back up this year because of mainly what's going on in the bond market. So those variables have worked against it. But relative to what people can afford, judging against income, the story is not quite as bad as just purely looking at the monthly payment. And then on top of that, affordability is complex, because if you look at who really buys new vehicles, we do the affordability index, and we use a historical custom that was started, I think, 40 years ago by Comerica, in the way that they measured using weeks of the median income of household. Well, newsflash, median households don't buy new vehicles.
Yeah,
And
right.
when you look at who really buys new vehicles, the upper two income quintiles, those income quintiles don't have an affordability problem. They simply have a cash flow and confidence problem, if that. And so affordability really becomes an issue that limits who can buy new, pushes more people in the used market. And so I think one of the things we see loud and clear from affordability in the data is how much the market has become dependent on higher income households, and how even higher income households are buying more of the used vehicles too. And I think that sort of puts us in a framework, especially if we have tariffs, some level of tariffs that's permanent longer term. We probably are shrinking the potential market for the new vehicle market, but we're still dependent on personal transportation. And that means most of that demand just ends up in the used vehicle market instead.
So reading between the lines, between the 7 million retail units since 2021 that aren't in, and all the opportunity you talk about with used cars are probably one of the biggest opportunity areas for growth in automotive currently. How would you as a dealer capitalize on that today? What does the data show there?
So, I would say that yes, there should be the most demand opportunity, but the challenge is supply. And so dealers have had to be good at sourcing inventory. And we especially have a scarcity of nearly new units because of the lack of production and the lack of leasing and the lack of selling into fleet that occurred during the pandemic and up until this time. So the good news, bad news is, well, we have a constrained market, and a constrained market means that pricing is going to be relatively stable. We don't have a lot of risk of used vehicles depreciating more than normal, but dealers are going to have to work hard at sourcing inventory and understanding and addressing what's really moving in a market, and that's where scale of dealers having multiple stores where they can receive a trade-in in one market that is better off sold in another market are going to have an advantage. And the more sources of inventory that a dealer can have, from buying directly from the street, from trades, from grounding leased vehicles, the more avenues you have, the better. And that's not going to get any easier, because one of the aspects, we've adjusted our longer term forecast for what's going to happen in wholesale and both new and used. And we basically are going to see tightening supplies in used in 2025 and into 2026. And it's going to take us likely until 2029 or 2030 to see conditions start to grow again in those markets. So bad news is we got to keep working hard. But the good news is, from my perspective, what dealers have been doing are exactly the kinds of behaviors and tactics and strategies that I think are going to keep them profitable and keep gross margins on used pretty stable over the next year or two.
Isn't it interesting, Jonathan, when you look at the data and you look at used car pricing trends all the way through COVID, for the past decade that I can remember, everybody's always talked about this used car price cliff that just never, ever, 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 ever even came anywhere near materializing. Why did everyone fear that? And obviously we know the levers that are pushing it higher right now, but it's the fear that just never came, right? Never materialized.
Yeah. I mean, I started at Cox a little over 8 years ago, and that's what I walked into, was this false belief that at that time it was an off-lease tsunami was going to crater and not just take used vehicle prices down, but there were some on Wall Street claiming it was going to take the economy down, like home prices coming down had taken down the economy in the Great Recession. And
Yeah.
just call BS on that from day one. By historical standards, by understanding that there is a relationship between new and used, that the used market has become much more strategic and important for both consumers and manufacturers alike. So they understand when they're doing stupid things that are going to hurt the resale value of those vehicles. And I think you have
Yeah.
far less of that. Now you add a pandemic that screwed up supply chains for a couple of years, and now we have tariffs. The likelihood that we're going to have an oversupply situation in any
Yeah.
part of the vehicle market for the foreseeable future is extremely low. And so that bodes well for pricing, that bodes well for maintaining margins. But if all your growth is going to come from transactions, that's where you've got challenges in that environment.
So thinking about that missed call where the industry just completely missed a forecast, you got it right as an economist because you were looking at the right inputs.
Supply and
the next-
demand, baby. That's what
Yeah.
to pay attention to.
Yeah. What's the next big miss that the industry is looking at, thinking it's going to go one way, and you predict another?
Well, I think one thing that I'm starting to learn about, and I'm not exactly convinced that I know exactly what that means for the vehicle market, is we've gone through some inflation in credit scores in recent years with
Ooh.
student loans. Well, first the support of consumers with stimulus, then student loans not having to be paid, and then student loans not being a part of credit scores. And we're learning, based on working with our partners Equifax and Experian, but also some new research that FICO has been sharing with us, that households with student loans, consumers with student loans, are increasingly falling behind. Over 2 million people are seriously delinquent. And the people that have become seriously delinquent in the first 5 months of this year have seen their credit scores erode by over 100 points. A 100-point erosion takes somebody that looked prime last week into the subprime category. So that tells me that lenders are going to be nervous. Lenders are going to be nervous about their existing loan portfolio because what they thought were prime loans maybe are being held by subprime persons. And then when you think about what that means for credit access and interest rates, it doesn't make me optimistic that once the Fed starts cutting, that we're actually going to see lower rates translate. So again, it's sort of an environment where, as a dealer, if you've been successful with interest rates high, with credit tight, that's probably going to be the condition for the better part of at least another year, because you've got this added variable of challenges with consumers that we're seeing more subprime in the marketplace because subprime has grown, and it's really because subprime shrank uncharacteristically over the last few years.
So do you project the rise of a more traditional subprime program for dealer groups, trying to target this audience that's eroded? Because to your point, a lot of that went away. Prime lenders were going subprime.
I think it's going to be important because the FICO data says, that part of the market is roughly 23%. You can't ignore that large a part of the market. Does the math work in new? And especially with the most affordable vehicles being the very vehicles most exposed to tariffs? Probably not. And so the used market becomes even more strategic and critical, as a result.
So used vehicles, subprime. Is there a third area, Jonathan, looking at the data where you see a big opportunity for auto dealers to win between now and the end of the year?
Well, fixed ops. Fixed ops is what's the one piece of this where transactions are going to be limited because of the affordability and supply dynamics. It's fixed ops is going to continue to be strong, and so managing the technicians, getting your pricing right relative to what's happening with tariffs on parts and the like, I think is going to be key to seeing the continued success. But I think dealers know that, and you've had several on the show, I think, in recent weeks that have talked about the success they're having in fixed.
Fixed has been a big opportunity area, not only because of the vehicles are aging, and so there's more opportunity there, but it's also a great source for used cars. So I think a lot of stores are working to get that retention up in order to get good, high quality used cars, which you mentioned there. One final thing before we let you go, we've reported on this show that traditional banks have leapt forward versus subvented lenders through factory programs and even credit unions. What are you seeing that drive from? I sense lenders are becoming a little more cautious in the current environment, but those who trust dealer partners that are running a good operation are willing to go more in, I think, than they have in the past. Props to our preferred lender group. We have a network of that. But what's driving that decrease of, what's that trend about, Jonathan?
Well, I think there's multiple things. And so looking across lending, there's constant ebbs and flows because the capital, the regulatory environment, there's shifts that occur. And one thing that has been occurring is banks are typically heavy in both auto and in mortgages. And this has been a really rough mortgage origination environment with the housing market effectively in a depression right now. So some of that capital needs to go somewhere. And the outlook for vehicle values is strong. And lenders feel more confident. Some of it is banks are just recovering what they lost in recent years. But generally, the biggest change that we've seen really over the last 6 to 9 months has been banks and to some degree credit unions becoming more aggressive because they are the ones that tighten the most. Now, captives massively pulled back over the last couple of months as the tariff announcements were made and supply tightened. But we're starting to see deals pop back up here in the month of June. And if there's another thing I would bet on over the next couple of months is we're going to see more captive financing deals because we've had very little of it this spring, and they are losing share. And that's generally not good. And this is generally one of the smartest investments of incentive money that the manufacturers can do.
Jonathan, you just said depression and mortgage lending. Do you want to clarify that a little bit? What's driving that before?
Well, the existing home market has shrunk to levels that we didn't see last, except for during the Great Recession. And that was, I was a housing economist before an auto economist. So I can absolutely say the activity has been woeful. And by the way, that limits demand for vehicles because the two things are positively correlated. When somebody moves to a new place, they tend to buy a vehicle within the first 6 months of moving. So it's important to us. And it doesn't look very promising to improve much because of the level of interest rates. Where in auto, you can manage it with the income gains. For every 1% increase in a mortgage rate, there's an 8% increase in a mortgage payment because of the amortization period. It's only a 3% change on an auto payment. So this big move up in interest rates has been especially challenging for the housing market.
Jonathan Smoke, Chief Economist, Cox Automotive. We appreciate you coming on the show to share your perspectives, fixed ops, used cars, interest rates, lending, and even a little conversation on housing. We're grateful you made the shift from housing over to automotive because automotive is awesome and it loves you and appreciates you. So thanks for being part of the show.
There are better songs about cars than houses. So,
by the way, what was the song? I know you always release songs. What was the top song for this?
Well,
report?
I'm working on it. In fact, I want to use your audience to give me ideas for our industry call next week. But
all right,
it's going to be heavy on roller coasters and waiting. So if I offered you a song selection right now, it would be "I Will Wait" by Mumford & Sons because the Fed is waiting.
I love Mumford
new car buyers that didn't buy in the spring, I think are waiting.
All right. So how can our audience join in on this, Jonathan? Do you want comments online? Do you want feedback?
Absolutely.
How do you
reach
want
out to me on Smoke on Cars on X and give me your song suggestions. And I promise if they're good, they will be in the playlist.
I do like Mumford & Sons. I think that's awesome. Jonathan Smoke, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Well, that's fun. I heard depression and mortgages, and I'm like, wait, we got to come back to that because that's just too much fun not to
I agree.
follow up a
Yeah.
little bit on. So
I heard it.
all
I
right.
blacked out for a second.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Let's go into our industry pulse. So this actually relates a little bit to what Jonathan Smoke just talked about. Today's industry pulse comes from a social media post by Heather Long. Heather's a counterpart to Jonathan, but she's the chief economist at Navy Federal Credit Union. She shares an interesting chart showing the total sales volume of the U.S. on a downward trend from April. The post then gained momentum after it was shared by a member of the House of U.S. Representatives, Don Beyer. He's a Dem from Northern Virginia, who ran 9 dealerships once until he sold his shares in 2019. What's Heather's theory on the trend, the decline in new cars? I mean, it doesn't take rocket science. Jonathan already talked about this. This may be a very quick segment. Well, after a rush on cars in March and April, tariffs have slowed automotive purchasing in May, shocker, considerably, as consumers are walking away from buying new cars, she says, because of tariffs. Huge opportunity in used cars, right?
I agree. Yeah, we've talked about this, I think, ad nauseum. So we know what's driving this.
Copy, paste. All right. Today's episode of the Daily Dealer Live is brought to you by our friends at Experian Automotive. Jonathan actually referenced some of their data in his comments today. Outdated or inaccurate customer information can severely impact your marketing efforts. Clean and enrich your first-party data with Experian Automotive to reduce marketing waste, better connect with your customers. You can visit carguymedia.com/Experian. Or if you can figure out how to do it, you can actually scan that QR code right there while you're on your phone. I usually have not figured out how to scan a QR code while I'm watching anything on social, but there are greater minds out there. So huge thanks to our friends at Experian for sponsoring the show today, which dives us straight into our next guest today. Jeff Zonen is operating partner and executive manager at Infiniti City of Queens, Infiniti City of Massapequa. I said that right. I love it. And Kia City of the Bronx. Jeff, welcome to the show. We're happy to have you today.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Jeff, awesome for you to join us today. Obviously, we got to start off the right way. How's biz?
Well, let's start off with, that was a great call with Jonathan.
Yes,
a lot of great information. Good. I mean, to hear that perspective on the other side of things, and especially from an economist, that was pretty remarkable. So great call, great information. I even picked up a lot from that. So
we try to bring the insights here on Daily Dealer Live.
Yeah, no,
Jeff,
that was great.
You saw me writing things down during his interview. I sometimes will get online comments. They're like, you look so distracted. And I'm like, wait, I'm here because I want to learn stuff that I can instantly put into effect. And there's no better place than the Daily Dealer Live. So you will see me writing things down, Jeff, today.
Absolutely. I did the same.
I want to get better. Yeah.
Yeah, I did the same. I wrote some stuff down to take back to my teams. It's a lot of good information that's not readily out there available to us. So
that's why we're here.
Cool. Nice job, guys.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All right. How's biz?
Business okay. I mean, we're doing all right, thank God. The stores are doing pretty well. It's been a little bit of a lag this month. It hasn't been as aggressive as a June should be, unfortunately. And again, obviously, we know the reasons. The tariffs and people a little bit worried. But I don't really like listening to market conditions. We kind of set our own conditions. We kind of set our own goals, and we look at what we have coming in the pipeline and what we have available for our consumers, and we like to set our own, flow chart, I guess you could say. We're on pace to hitting our forecast for the month, which is great. We look at things, unfortunately, not on a 30-day basis, but more quarterly. So far, we're on pace.
Well, let's touch on the quarter in just a second. Give us a little context as to what you're doing in Infiniti. You and I spoke briefly the other day. You took this store from what to where are you now?
Well, we acquired the store in July 2023. The store is doing about 25 retail deals a month. We're up to about 100 and give or take 140, 150 a month. We put a whole new process, a whole new team, a bunch of forward-thinking guys, and girls that, want to succeed. We all have the same vision. We all have the same goal. We look at things, all together, regardless of title, regardless of personnel. We set our goals pretty lofty, and we don't stop until we hit them.
For sure. Now you got this dream team that you've built under you, and you've done dramatic things. For the people that don't know, you are doing only new car sales at this location, correct?
So yes, at the Queens location, we're unfortunately only doing new car deals.
Wait, why do you say unfortunately?
Well, because I mean, we just heard the call with the gentleman before me.
I know,
Cars
drum
are
roll,
very fast.
Jeff.
You know, the other
Tell us how
stores
great news are.
Yeah, the other stores are thriving with used cars. Obviously, used car acquisition is very difficult right now. You know, but we're doing everything we can, whether it's from the streets, whether it's from third party vendors, whether it's consumers. But we're doing everything we can. But this specific location does not have used cars available currently. I mean, it doesn't mean that we won't have it in the next few months. But right now, and since we've been here, we have not been able to do used cars, unfortunately.
All right. So used cars aside, which you're going to have in a few months, you are currently profitable, correct?
Yes, thank God. The store's profitable. We do a nice job, running lean. There's multiple people here with multiple positions and multiple titles and multiple jobs. We like to look at everything. There's nothing that gets past us, whether it's bills, whether it's vendors, whether it's ideas, or just thinking out of the box and having one particular person do one or two different jobs that they can handle. So we run very lean. Fixed ops is obviously a huge source of profit for us. Infiniti does.
You don't have any internal work, right? With used cars.
No, unfortunately, not a lot.
You're selling new cars. You got warranty work. You got CP.
Correct.
But I mean, give us a little more. You had mentioned before, and I want to get back to. You look at your business on a quarterly. Mm-hmm. What's the strategy there? How are you attacking this on the volume side for Infiniti? What are you able to do that no one else is able to recreate?
Well, everybody is able to recreate it. All right. It's just a matter of whether they want to or not, and whether they see the long-term vision. Infiniti is a phenomenal partner with us. And unfortunately, we're also down to two models right now because the other two models got affected with the tariffs, the QX50 and the QX55. But Infiniti does a really nice job, supporting the retailers when we do sell the cars, and there's some money that comes in quarterly. So instead of looking at things on a 30-day basis, we look at things a little wider now. The 30 days go by very quickly. We just close out the month and we close the financials, and next thing you know, we're closing out the next month. So being able to kind of widen that a little bit and look at things on a quarterly basis, and being able to say, all right, for this quarter, we got to sell 300 cars, and this is how we're going to get there. This is what we need to do to get there. We think outside the box. We do things a little bit unconventional here. We don't only just rely on third-party sites and vendors. We do our own social media. We have a phenomenal sales staff, phenomenal management staff, phenomenal general manager that goes out and we find business. We don't just sit back and wait for business to show up to the store. We're aggressive, and we go out there and we search for it.
You're in a super competitive market. What's the value proposition now? I mean, if you're looking at it quarterly, you mentioned briefly that there's some money coming back in. When you're looking at this, walk us through the steps of, what deals you're accepting, what customers you're bringing in, and what the pieces are. So
traditionally, a car dealership can look at things one way, right? There's invoice, there's MSRP, and then you have a little bit of that room in the middle to make some money. The other way of looking at it is let's track all the money that we have, right? All the money that the manufacturer, the factory gives you. Let's add it all up into a big lump sum and figure out how we can sell the car where at the end of the day, consumer gets a phenomenal deal. We get a consumer out of it. We get a client out of it, and we make a few bucks at the end. I don't want to give up all the secrets, but every dealer, every GM, if they track their money and they know where the flow is, they should be able to figure this out. And if it's only MSRP and invoice, 1,000%, you got to stick to your guns and you got to be able to make your money. But if there's additional money that comes in after that, you got to kind of keep that into account as well. And you got to look at the whole picture and make the decisions that fit the store.
For sure. What are you using any AI or any other technologies in-house to pull some levers?
So we, I might be a little bit late to the game. I love the human nature of the business, but I am looking into a lot of different AI programs right now with the team, and a lot of this it's remarkable. I mean, you think of AI, And I kind of had an idea of what AI is, obviously, but to see how far it's come in such a short time and what it's able to do in the car industry, it's remarkable. So we're gonna start focusing on AI a lot more than we have in the past.
All right. So you're currently using it, or you're thinking
No,
about using
we're currently not using it. I mean, there's some
Gotcha.
vendors that we use that have
Sure.
AI implemented in them, but we are going to start using AI in the near future. Yes.
All right. So then AI aside, because it sounds like that's on the docket, and used cars, what's your feeling of 2025 going forward? Where are you headed? What's your direction?
Yeah. So we've just had a pretty big meeting yesterday with the executives of Infiniti, and I gotta say things are looking okay. I left there somewhat excited. I left there pumped up, and I left there feeling comfortable with the plan of the rest of 2025 going into 26 and 27. For us specifically, for this brand, we have some new cars coming out. We have programs are there. They definitely they help the dealer body. They support the dealer body, and I'm excited. I mean, I know we might not sell a ton of new cars, but I think we're still going to be in the game. We're going to be competitive, and I think Infinity's slowly coming back to where it used to be.
I'm curious, what would you say to our national audience? Like, there are dealers all across the country. We have almost 10,000 people watching us right now, on across the different platforms that don't really know your geography that well. You think of the Bronx, you think of Queens, you think of Massapequa. Did I say it right?
Yes, Massapequa.
Yes. Like, what do most people get wrong about your geography and some of the interesting challenges of selling vehicles for Kia and for Infiniti in your place?
So-
or maybe what does the OEM get wrong?
Well, I mean, I don't know if the OEM gets anything wrong in this case, but in terms of our geography and where we are, we're limited by space.
Yeah.
We're very limited. If you guys just Google Earth the Queen store, my lot holds 30 cars. We have a very
you're
big
jammed in.
Yeah, we have a very big fixed ops department here, and we don't have space. Same thing with the Bronx. We don't have space.
How do you adapt to that? Because space is important in automotive with our acres and acres and acres of lot, right?
Yeah, we got to get creative. We rent lot space all over the place, and that's becoming extremely expensive too. And it eats up the bottom line, so we got to get creative. We got to find places where to put all these cars. And honestly, the best way to put this is we got to turn the inventory. We can't have cars sitting too long.
Yeah.
And that's what hurts us the most. If we take these cars in and we turn the inventory that's incoming and we know what's incoming, we could pre-sell some of these vehicles. We can keep this moving. And instead of spending $60 to $100 per car, per spot, per month, where it adds up, we have Queens has about 300 cars in stock. It gets up there. It gets up there. So besides the space constraints, you have three of the largest dealers in the country in a 15-mile radius from me.
Who is that? Who are the biggest?
There's a dealer out in Brooklyn. There's another one out in Long Island. I don't want to give them too much credit, but
he's not even going to say their name. I love it. That's automotive for you. Hey,
they're great guys.
Okay,
nothing against them. And listen, honestly, I love,
you're competing, right?
And competition is great. Competition is great, right? The more, and I tell this to everybody, the more Infinitis are on the road, the better it is for the dealer body. I know we're all competing, but at the end of the day, we want our product out on the road. If the product's out on the road, we'll do a good job selling them. A consumer is the best form of advertisement that there possibly is.
So Jeff, last question before we let you go. We've had a great conversation here. You were an NADA board member, right? So you see the value of some of these organizations, NADA, the car dealership guy. What are some of the things you see that need to be worked on in automotive, policy-wise or legal compliance-wise, that you'd like to see tackled from a regulatory standpoint, or from tech or what disruption, any more space for cars, buildings, whatever?
That is a great question. And thanks for not prepping me for that one. I mean, you could have given me some time to prepare for this one, right?
Hey, you changed all of our questions at the beginning of the show. It's like Grant Cardone, by the way, yesterday. He's like, these are all crap. And I'm like, okay, fine. Give us your questions. So,
and he's great. I'm a very big fan of Grant Cardone. But man, you know what? I tell this to people all the time. The status quo of the industry needs to be changed a little bit. We're so stuck in the old ways of doing business that is hurting some of the dealer body out there. if you look at the stores that we have under our umbrella, and again, you know, we're part of Integrity Automotive, headed with Mr. Jeff Reeder, Mike Iannelli, you know, myself as a small partner. But if you look at some of the people in the industry, some of these old habits, they must die. We got to be able to adapt to the new way of doing business.
Habit, Jeff. Name a habit.
Oh man, you know, if you're looking at being able to pencil a deal and give a customer a few different options and forget the Sharpies of the world, right? Yeah. Being able to give somebody a transparent, you know, we're all about efficiency, transparency, and respect. Give somebody the transparency of a deal and show them, hey, folks, this is what it is. This is what you're paying. And whether you, with the salesman, the finance manager, when you're leaving the dealership, nothing's going to change. You know, you're going to get a service. You're going to get pitched on some of the stuff. It's your option. You take it or not. It's up to you. Being able to be honest and truthful with the customer body is super important. And
Jeff, I have a theory.
I'm sorry?
I have a theory to your point. I think the marketplace is dragging the industry to more transparency. And there are factors out there, technology and other things, just readily available information that's helping to drive that. And then there's a core of really great dealer groups, yourself included. We are part of that demand full transparency from employee, staff, and as part of the culture, right? So I love that you call that out. All right, I lied because I have one more question. So we had last week, we had the rideshare guy on the CDG podcast. He was talking about Waymo and Tesla and some of these self-driving technologies. And I asked the question, how can dealers take advantage of this? In your geography, as constrained and tight as it is, you're going to see more of that. Do you have any thoughts on how to capitalize on that as an Infiniti and Kia dealer, like kind of autonomous technology and you know, and all that?
Yeah, all that is amazing. Unfortunately, Kia and Infiniti we don't have that.
They don't got it
right now.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, I guess we'll kind of have to, you know, play that by ear and just see what happens and see what's available to us. And if there's something for us to be able to go and grab and be successful with, we'll do that, obviously. But for now, we just kind of have to deal with what we have. And with Infiniti, it's a few models and a bunch of really good product coming out in the future. But for now, this is what it is. And we're all about ICE. We don't have Infiniti does not have an electric car. We don't have any hybrids just yet. But it looks like a lot of stuff is being in the works. So I think Infiniti will definitely be aggressive and competitive in that field.
Well, Jeff Zonen, again, operating partner, executive manager, Infiniti City Queens, Infiniti City Massapequa, and Kia City of the Bronx. Thanks for joining the show. Appreciate
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, guys. Thank you.
That is fun. Greater transparency. Yes. Check. He's 100% right. And I can't imagine being in a place where you've got no space for cars. Like, can you imagine having a 14-day supply of vehicles? No wonder. I mean, you're kind of stuck selling new, and that's a challenge.
Yeah, no, I should have asked him. I believe he mentioned on the other day, he only has 3 or 4 cars in the showroom. So I've never operated like that. That's got to be incredibly, incredibly difficult. So would you agree then, in the sake of transparency, gone are the days of giving the customer something to say no to? We want to give them something to say yes to right out of the gate, right?
And Yuli, on that, you get the last comment of the day. Appreciate your perspective on that as well. Thank you to our loyal audience for watching today's episode of the Daily Deal Live, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen. Don't forget, we're live every Monday, Wednesday, and we'll be back here Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. So if this is your world, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on those notifications so you never, ever, ever miss a beat. And we'll see you next episode.
We'll see you next time.